President Trump is expected to announce his pick to replace Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg this week. During a rally in the battleground state of North Carolina Saturday night, the president said his nominee will be a woman. CBS News has learned that the leading contenders are federal circuit court judges Amy Coney Barrett and Barbara Lagoa, as well as Deputy White House counsel Kate Comerford Todd. Joining me now to discuss is John Malcolm. He's a senior legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation and the vice president of its Institute for Constitutional Government and the director of the Meese Center for Legal and Judicial Studies. John, great to have you. We just highlighted 3 of the names said to be on the president's short list. Is there anything else that you think the president should consider, and what's your reaction to those 3?
Well, I think the 3 of them are great. I've never met Judge Lagoa, but people I know who know her well think very, very highly of her. I have met Kate Comerford Todd and also Amy Coney Barrett, and I would not completely count out, by the way, a 4th potential contender who would be Judge Allison Rushing on the 4th Circuit Court of Appeals. They all seem, very distinguished. Kate Todd, clerk for, I think it was for Michael Ludig and then Clarence Thomas. Amy Barrett clerked for Lawrence Silberman on the D.C. Circuit, and then for Antonin Scalia. Judge Lagoa, while she's a brand new 11th Circuit judge, has actually been a judge since 2006. They all have very distinguished careers. 2 of them, of course, Judge Barrett and Judge Lagoa, have gone through the confirmation process before. Judge Lagoa did so very recently, and I expect that if they are nominated and we proceed to a hearing, that they will hold up very well under what will no doubt be an unbelievably contentious confirmation hearing.
Definitely. You also mentioned Allison Rushing. Why don't you talk to our viewers a little bit about her? She's less familiar to all of us.
Well, she's younger. Judge Rushing is 38 years old. She's on the 4th Circuit Court of Appeals, and she had a very distinguished career before she went there. Immediately before going there, she was a partner at the law firm of Williams and Connolly. She was also a government lawyer for quite some time. People think very, very highly of her, both in terms of her personality and clearly her legal acumen.
Well, you put together a list in 2016 that then candidate Trump said influenced the list that he released ahead of that election. Take us through the process for selecting and nominating judicial nominees. What are the president and Senate lawmakers looking for?
Well, what I hope that they are looking for is somebody who not only has the requisite academic background and experience, but also somebody who is an originalist and a textualist, somebody who will follow the law as written and how it was understood at the time the law was passed or a constitutional provision was ratified, and isn't going to sort of look at words in text or constitution and pour into them their own personal or political preferences. That is what I hope they look for. No doubt, different presidents, depending on which party they belong to, may view things the same way I do, or they may prefer to have a so-called living constitutionalist. And no doubt, senators may feel the same way.
Well, on that point about personal preferences and perhaps personal ethics and religion, I want to talk to you a little bit more about Amy Coney Barrett. During her confirmation process for the federal bench in 2017, she faced criticism over her views on abortion. How could this and her other writings on matters of faith potentially play into her confirmation process if she becomes the president's nominee?
Well, I don't remember. I mean, she may have well expressed her personal views on abortion, but I don't believe that she's written about Roe versus Wade as precedent, but I don't think she's ever in any of her academic writing called for Roe versus Wade to be overturned or said it was bad law. I don't think any of her 107 opinions that she's written so far as a judge on the 7th Circuit have touched particularly on the issue of abortion. There was no question that during her confirmation hearing, she was questioned about her Catholic beliefs. I thought in a very unfair way. Senator Feinstein said, the dogma lives loudly in you. And she made it quite clear that her faith is one thing and is personal, and that does not come into her role as a judge.
But President Trump has said that he is looking for anti-abortion judges to fill these seats. Certainly, isn't that part of the criteria that he's evaluating when looking at who ought to be his nominee? Since he's since he has made that pledge to his base.
Yeah, he certainly has. He said that he's going to appoint originalists and textualists in the mode of Clarence Thomas, Antonin Scalia, and Samuel Alito. I don't know whether or not they are having a quote-unquote litmus test and asking prospective nominees that question. I certainly hope they are not. In the past, both Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh and other people who have been appointed to the bench under President Trump have been asked point blank whether they made any promises or guarantees about how they would rule in any case, much less Roe versus Wade, and they all said that they did not. And I would hope and expect that they are telling the truth, because after all, once a judge takes an oath, part of that oath is to not prejudge cases and to consider the law after hearing argument from counsel on both sides of the case.
Certainly remember how deftly that was handled during those confirmation processes. Republican lawmakers, to change subjects ever so slightly, are facing criticism for their contradictory statements over how they plan to handle this vacancy on the court compared to how they handled President Obama's nomination of Merrick Garland in 2016. Do you think that criticism is fair? And do you agree with how Republicans are proceeding now?
Well, different senators made different statements at the time. Clearly, Mitch McConnell said, not only is there an upcoming election, but one of the reasons why we're not going to do this is because we have divided government. We have a president who's a Democrat, and the Senate, which is the body that gives its advice and consent. The House isn't involved in this process, was in Republican hands. And so to some extent, it's a question of history. It may be a question of principle, and certainly the ability to do something. Raw power does play into this. And the Democrats are going to cry foul. They're already out there doing that, and we'll see whether or not that resonates with the American people. Vacancies do not come along very often. Every single one of them is important. Senator McConnell has vowed that they will take up the nominee, but he, of course, has to keep at least 50 senators, including himself, together before that can get done.
Yeah, but John, on that point about divided government, we do have a divided government right now. The House is held by Democrats and the Senate is controlled by Republicans. What makes it different is that Mitch McConnell and President Trump are both Republicans, so they have the power to do so, which is different from a philosophical argument about trying to keep a balance of power or having a mandate, right?
Well, the Constitution makes quite clear that the House of Representatives is not involved in the confirmation process. The president nominates, and it is the Senate that gives its advice and consent. Of course, House members are elected every 2 years. Senators are elected for 6 years, so they have a longer period of time. And so, yes, we are divided in that the House is controlled by the Democrats, and the situation may change depending on how the American public reacts to this whole process when we have our elections in November. But at the moment, the two bodies or the two entities that are involved in this process, the presidency and the Senate, are in control of one party.
Yes, but the Constitution also doesn't say that there's a timeline before the election in which a nomination by the president ought to be considered or not considered by the Senate.
That's
but
right.
This is a debate that is going to continue, and there are many different interesting machinations of it. John Malcolm, it has been such a pleasure to talk to you.
Good to be with you.